from about just about 4 decades at this point of successes and the opposite of startups, of big business involvement. So I was able to just take a little bit of a step back, not too much, being that the involvement continues, and put together a simple, holistic perspective on entrepreneurship, on success, on setback. At the same time, my background, my studying of ancient sources, primarily Judaic sources, was also a very important component in terms of structuring the ideas. So I started teaching at 19, started writing around the same time, got involved with my first business, which was a family business at the age of 22, 23. Set some lofty and seemingly unrealistic goals for that business. We were very fortunate that we met and exceeded those goals in less time than we had projected to do so, despite huge ambivalence, to say the least. And in that process, started to learn and understand how entrepreneurship starts, what fuels it, and ultimately, when it turns into something absolutely concrete, how those entrepreneurial perspectives should move into the day-to-day management of the business. So let's start at the beginning. The beginning is the perspective of being expansive and creative and unafraid. In that sense, we reach back to the notion that there's an element in each of us that's beyond the physical. We want to call it the soul, the spirit, the legacy of the person. We have our spiritual side and our physical side. That spiritual, so to speak, or call it whatever you want, the ability to imagine, the ability to dream, enables us to think beyond the day-to-day, to consider possibilities that are absolutely disconnected from reality. And those are the builders. Those are the possibilities that we use to frame and shape where we're going to be moving. So it starts with the ability to dream. We have to be in a place where we're working day to day on love of self, where those things that cause us pain, those inconsistencies inside, those people around us who maybe don't enrich our lives should be carefully and kindly distanced from us. The things that enrich us, for some person, one person it might be boating or sailing once a week, another person it might be study, another person may be music, another person it may be all of those and several more. Those elements that enrich me, that make me happier and more true to me and more content, those elements have to be brought closer and they have to be practiced. I have to make sure that each day of my life, I'm spending a portion of time doing the things that are true to me, that enhance and strengthen my love of me, and become blockers, so to speak, to those things in life that hurt, that are painful, that are challenging. So let's assume a person is beginning to build his life that way. He sits with a piece of paper and he identifies those handful of things that make him feel good. And they don't have to enrich the world and they don't have to benefit anybody but me. They make me happy. They make me feel good. Once I've identified those things, I need to put them into my schedule. Very simple. Bring them into my life every day. So each day I have 1, 2, 3, 4, as many as I can, things that affirm my interests and strengthen my love of me and my confidence in me. That's a starting point. Now, assuming that that's happening, step two would be to remove those in my life who don't enrich my life. Friendship is meant to be reciprocal. A relationship is based on mutual giving and enriching and expansiveness that comes from one's involvement in each other's lives. So I subtly distance those who are in my life who don't enrich my life, and I begin to bring closer to me people, and they don't have to be best friends, but they should be quality people whose knowledge I seek, whose caring enriches me, whose smile means something to me. So I begin to surround myself with a day-to-day routine, and my routine, my self-enriching routine, can be 20 minutes a day, an hour a day. It doesn't have to be more. And those people I build into my life can be in my life intermittently. Don't have to be there too often. They have to be there. They have to be just in a phone call, so to speak, away. Once I've done those two sort of preparatory steps, now I've put myself in a position where I can begin to dream, where I can begin to look past day-to-day reality and my day-to-day obligations. And this, in our case, what's going on now, I can begin to look past that and imagine and ask myself certain really essential questions. The first being, I know I got to pay my bills. I have a family to take care of. I have serious responsibilities, all true. But if I could just, for a moment, or an hour, or whatever, reach outside of that and identify things that I feel I can create exceptionally well on a career level. A new possibility, a nuanced idea, a slightly different version of my retail business, my architectural practice, my legal practice. If I didn't have to worry just for a brief time about my reality, I'm not ignoring it. I'm just stepping aside from it like every entrepreneur does on a daily basis, just about, or if not daily, on a very regular basis. If I could step outside my reality and ask a question, if I could do anything at this point on my career level, what would I do? What would be exciting? What would be fresh? What would be different? And again, what we suggest is that we don't allow our minds, our logic, our reason, our rationale to answer the question. Don't let them get in. We need our gut, our heart, our higher will, that perspective in us that operates outside of the boundaries of logical and reasonable and realistic. When you fall in love, you don't fall in love with your brain, you fall in love with your heart. People who attempt to fall in love with their brains can't possibly get there, because love will never be a logical endeavor. Love demands that we have realistic considerations, of course, but we qualify them into a portion of the consideration and a secondary portion, certainly so at the outset, and we let our heart, our gut, the chemistry, our emotion, our higher will, we let that element of us drive the day. In fact, this element of a higher will, of the ability to think, to consider beyond reason and logic, is this spectacular, unique human element that we only have. It's a quick example of that is that only a human being would run towards a fire, because a human being can move beyond instinct and beyond reason and rationale and say, it's true, that's extremely dangerous, but there's somebody there that I may be able to help, or for whatever reason. An animal would run away from the fire instinctually, correct? But we have a different capacity. And that capacity is to say, okay, I'm not checking out of my day-to-day job, but I have this uniquely human capacity to dream, to envision, to imagine, and to reach for something that should not be logical or reasonable. So hopefully I'm in the mindset, I've built some people around me, and I have the courage to ask that question. And when I've asked it, before I allow cynicism, adulthood, reality, any of that stuff to step into my consideration, I jot the ideas down, jot them down. Doesn't matter how unrealistic they seem. And then after I've jotted a few of them down, take a look again at what's there and sort of imagine doing idea 1 or 2 or whatever they might be, and you'll get a feeling inside. Some of them will make you feel energized and excited and expansive. Others may not. You know, we have a little simple little tool that is mentioned in the Risk to Succeed book, which is the mirror test. And I've done this with many, many, many people. While you're reading off your answers, those unqualified answers, by the way, take a look in the mirror and look at your facial expressions, your body language, your level of animation, your level of energy. And what you'll find is that your inner self is true to you. And that which brings with it the most energy, the most animation, the most excitement, that's more than likely what you should be pursuing. Good. So that's how we start. At that point, it's good to bring in one of those friends, one of those mentors, someone who you now trust, with whom you've grown, with whom you have what to share, who may have absolutely no interest whatsoever in the type of business that you're imagining. But he or she only need have an interest in you and your growth. And you only need to trust them and their wisdom. And that person should become your success buddy. That person should be the one with whom you share your fears, your concerns, your uplifts, your excitement. That person should be the go-to person. And interestingly, most often, that person is not your spouse, is not your girlfriend, is not in your immediate circle or your immediate family. The people closest to you are most often concerned about you. And they don't want you to be hurt, and they don't want you to fail. So they'll discourage you because they don't want you to be hurt. For that reason, those people, even though they're the ones we love most in the world, they're the ones who define our lives overwhelmingly, those are not the people to share this greater than reality idea with. It's that other person, that mentor, that guide, that friend, that trusted partner. So that's the next step. Once we've done that, we now backfill this unrealistic, illogical idea with a very practical plan to get there. So we're not abandoning the practical and the real. It's clear that things have to move in our practical and real world. But we're not tarnishing or compromising this exciting possibility by subjecting it to quick, cynical analysis. We're excited. We know it presses some nice buttons in us. We have someone with whom to share the ups and downs. And now we go back and we start to put together what I like to see, which is a 36-month time and action plan. Small, real, as Jacob describes in his book, incremental but real steps to get things moving. A few of the important notes here are the following. Most great ideas die at inception. The next tranche typically die within the first few months. And the rest generally don't make it through the first few years. And that's because people don't have the courage, don't have the partner, don't have the ability to dream, don't have the sense of self-love that enables them to continue to dream, and don't understand that to build something spectacular is built by absolutely small, and sorry to use the cliche, baby steps. They did an interesting study a number of years ago, I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, which said clearly that the average overnight success takes 15 years. The average overnight success takes 15 years, which means there'll be one that happens in two years, one that happens in 5 or 7, and a bunch that happen in 20, but the average takes real time. And if I can learn to take small, tiny, but real steps, it won't take me 15 years, not in today's day and age. It'll take me a lot less. So here's what we do. Let's assume that we have a day job. We have full-time responsibilities. So we dedicate an hour a day to beginning to build this 3-year time and action plan. 1 hour a day. Everybody's got an hour a day. When I was building my first company, I was teaching 10, 12 hours a week, and I was the CEO and the CFO and the COO all wrapped in one. And it was a challenging time in the retail business. So I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and I was putting it out and getting it done. In case that we have a full-time job, and maybe we have family responsibilities and all those real things, dedicate an hour a day. Now let's do a quick little scenario. Let's say there's Ricky 1 and Ricky 2. Ricky 1 has the courage to think, to imagine, and reach beyond his logic and reason, to articulate an idea. He then has the courage to put trust in someone else, not so easy. He then has the discipline to build a 36-month plan. And guess what? If you can't get to 36 months, do 6 months. That's okay. Every time you do a couple of months, add a couple of months. 36 months would be a grand slam. And in fact, that might be reserved for those of you who have already built businesses. But if you haven't, do a 3-month plan, do a 6-month plan. The key is spend an hour a day working the idea. Now again, Ricky 1 had the guts. He brought the right people into his life. He wrote some great stuff down, but then he left it. Ricky 2 did the same thing. Wrote it down, knew it felt right, brought in that person who can help. And by the way, that mentor or that success buddy doesn't have to be there forever. Those people can be intermittent and can come and go, and that's okay too. But Ricky 2 spent an hour a day. Now, at the end of a month, which is a minute, Ricky 1 has an idea that he's already starting to second guess. And Ricky 2 is 30 hours in the game. Now, some of those hours may have been spent super productively, and others maybe not productively at all, but it doesn't matter. I'm in it. I've read up on it. I have scores of articles about it. I've reached out to people. I understand. I'm downloading information. I'm building a library. I'm having preliminary meetings. Fantastic. Way ahead of Ricky 1 in a month. And in 2 months and 3 months, where it becomes 60 and 90 hours, then what starts to happen is very, very exciting. And I'll tell you, having done this for a long time, this has never failed me. When a person has the courage to believe in life, to reach beyond the day-to-day, to articulate an expansive vision, and commit the time to begin to make it happen, life responds. And generally speaking, the response is greater than the effort. And that's the truth. The response is greater than the effort, almost always. So what you'll find is, having committed the 30, 60, or 90 hours, you'll find that your commitment should have brought you to this, but it brought you to this. Your commitment should have brought you this much insight and understanding. It brought you that much. Because that's life's commitment to us, to the human growth and human creation and human expansiveness. That's how things work. Then you'll have some ups and downs, hopefully, some big ones. Giant public failure, as people have heard me speak about, is always good, extremely painful. And one of the most important gifts that life can offer, in that it puts you in a place where everything you thought, everything you hoped for, at least for a short period of time, is taken from you. And it can really break you, or it can give you resilience that's spectacular. When you've had that big failure in an early entrepreneurial effort, and you feel like you're standing naked in front of everyone who you discussed the idea with, or just in front of yourself, and you're frightened, and the tears might be rolling down your cheeks, then you know that you've touched it, you've fallen, and everything that could have been taken from you in terms of this entrepreneurial effort was taken. You failed, and everybody you respect knows about it. Now you're free. Now you won't be afraid to fail again. Here's, by the way, where your mentor, where your friend is there to help you stand back up. But once you've had that failure, you're effectively free to just get up and build in an untethered way. And it doesn't get better than that. So I gave you the first round on this. Jacob, what do you say? Are we okay at this point, or?
I mean, we can still continue. It's amazing. Really incredible information.
Okay, so let's take just a few more minutes and just add in a couple of other very important elements. One is that in order for a person to be a builder and a leader on a personal level, certainly on a career level, he or she has to be a perpetual student. One of the things I suggest to people is that they should dedicate at least 10 minutes a day, hopefully a lot more, but at least 10 minutes a day to gaining new knowledge. And if that 10 minutes shouldn't be reading the periodicals of the industry that you're in. That's done in any case. It should be 10 minutes in something completely unrelated to what you do for a living. Imagine, again, Ricky 1, Ricky 2. Ricky 1, bright guy, stays up to date on what's happening in his new area of interest and moves in that direction. Ricky 2 is spending 10 minutes a day learning something altogether new, unrelated to what he does. At the end of a year, just a year, Ricky 2 has 3,650 minutes of knowledge, of new understanding, of greater substance that he brings to whatever he does. Now, if you really want to make that a grand slam, it goes from 10 minutes to 12 to 15 to 20 to whatever. But to be a perpetual student is essential if you want to be a successful entrepreneur. In my opinion, if you want to be a happy person, you have to be a perpetual student. And the consistency in your learning is no less important than what you're doing. 10 minutes a day is better than 1 hour every Wednesday. 10 minutes a day with a text, And by the way, I also recommend that when you're studying or growing through the text, you have a pencil and a highlighter. The pencil should be there to write your comments and questions in the margins, and the highlighter is there to underscore any of the points you felt resonated most. Now that text becomes yours. It's great. Now, again, it could be 10 minutes, 15, 30, the more the better. And what we also strongly suggest is that at the end of each month, put a little note in your calendar. At the end of each month, just take a step back and say, I'm studying and I've got 30 days more substance and knowledge in me. And by the way, if I'm looking to build something fantastically new in architecture and I'm studying something completely unrelated, wine growing, it's all good because everything ultimately interconnects. At the end of the month, pause and say, am I studying things that are harder to understand for me, that are intellectually more challenging? The idea being that I grow in amassing more and more knowledge, and then I build my learning tool, my learning muscle, my mind, by raising the bar of complexity on what I'm studying or reading. So I want to be doing both. I want to be amassing knowledge, and I want to be making my learning muscle stronger. Good? One more piece and we'll wrap. The other element of successful entrepreneurship that we can knock out at this point is entrepreneurs don't give back. We have a perspective that, we give back, which is beautiful, but entrepreneurs don't give back. Entrepreneurs pay it forward. What does that mean? When the day you start working on your new business, make sure that you're spending time giving to another human being, personally, directly. It's not about writing a check to charity, or it's not about observing some charitable organization that somebody else is involved in. It's about working directly, you personally, in something with another person or people, paying it forward. You don't have the time? True. You're now doing your day job and you're trying to build your new career idea and you're building your family and whatever else, all true. And you're studying every day? True. Good. Take it on. Take it on. Working directly, face to face, giving to another human being. And here again, take a step back and say, if I could help the world in any way, what would I do? For one person, it's visiting those who are ill and maybe in a hospital. For another, it's being a big brother, big sister to a child from a broken home. To another, it's teaching a handicapped child after school. There's no end to where we can give. And the point here is that, as we know, the primary beneficiary of giving is the giver. The person who grows most from his or her giving is never the recipient. It's always the giver. And for that reason, as we begin to think expansively on a career level, we've got to develop on a human level. We've got to learn to judge less. We've got to learn to be more proactive in our generosity and the kindliness of our thinking, and to be more able to bring people into our lives effectively. And giving is an excellent way to learn and grow in that respect. So these are some of the tools I'm thrilled at the opportunity to share with you. I greatly applaud Jacob and his efforts. I think he's a fabulously bright young person who wrote a book that people with decades older than him would not have been able to write. I'm happy to be part of this enterprise, and I wish you all good health, safety, and success. Thank you.